Ben is with the Minnesota Department of Transportation. He is in charge of the operations of the MnROAD facility, and also is in charge of the MnROAD aspect, part of the partnership between the two centers. He's also in charge of partnerships with the National Road Research Alliance, and he's a chair of the TRB Committee on Full-Scale Accelerated Pavement Testing, and a member of and friend of a number of other committees at TRB, including the LTPP Expert Task Group. He loves his family, his co-workers, and his dog, Jessie. And not necessarily in the correct order, I guess. Right, Ben? Okay. But with that, please welcome Mr. Ben Worrell.
Thank you very much for that nice introduction. And I appreciate being able to be here to speak to you about our partnership and the excitement we have related to it with our sponsors. Again, this partnership is something that Buzz and I have been thinking about for a long time. We always used to say, wouldn't it be nice? And thank all the sponsors and all the people involved to make this partnership possible. So we really appreciate here at the Minnesota DOT this partnership. But I wanted to talk a little bit. I'll talk a little bit about some of the parts about MnROAD, and I'll talk about the partnership. And it's important to know about MnROAD is that we have a dedicated staff to be doing this work. MnROAD is owned and operated by the Minnesota DOT. We've been going now for 22 years doing different research. We've gone through a number of different phases of our research, and we've had a lot of success. We've worked with our local road research board, which is cities and counties of Minnesota have helped sponsor our test track along with the Minnesota DOT. We worked with the industry, worked with Federal Highway, Sharp 2. And now we're working with the National Road Research Alliance, which actually brings into partnerships and things like that we're looking for to work with industry. We're rebuilding our test track with the National Road Research Alliance input, and really looking forward to our third phase of research. Something to say about our operations. Again, we're very lucky in the state of Minnesota with our top staff. Really appreciates having researchers that can do research, not just manage research. So we have a lot of staff that are able to do this, and that gives us the consistency that you need to have a successful organization comes to research. So, when one person leaves, we have more people to fill in behind them. And MnROAD's really good because it allows for that type of facility where everyone can work, and you have people to back each other up. But we do a lot of the research development. We do the construction, the performance monitoring. We have lots of sensors in our roadway, similar to what NCAT has. We have a database where we keep all the information, and actually most of that information now is online, where you can just click and get the information right from the website. But again, we provide traffic loadings, and one thing that we've developed just in the last year is the Pathways van right there. That's something that we've added. We're trying to do our monitoring in more of an economic fashion. And this type of system that we have 3 Pathways vans in the state of Minnesota, 2 for production and 1 for research. And that research van is going to be one of the vans that will be collecting the data on our US 169 and our CASA 8. But it gives us the opportunity to kind of branch outside of MnROAD and do different things like this pavement preservation, where I need a longer stretch of roadway to do it. I just wanted to show this, we've really done well in our research in Minnesota, and this is just showing the benefit cost ratios for Minnesota DOT and the Local Road Research Board. But we're seeing our first phase, 10 years, we were 9-to-1, and the last 10 years, we were about 5-to-1. I think we got a little more pickier in how we established that. But, we have shown a benefit for the state, and that's why the state continues to help sponsor our efforts there. But again, we're looking to be more of a national facility through the National Road Research Alliance in the future. A couple of things, we have done a lot of pavement preservation efforts at MnROAD. I wanted to point these out real quickly. We've done a number of crack sealing, a number of reports related to that, the chip seals. Our first phase of research, we did microsurfacing on all the sections where we did combinations of 1-pass, 2-pass, filling in the transverse cracks, not filling them in. We have lots of good information on, even before the partnership developed, and how to deal with our transverse cracks. You can see what happens in Minnesota is the base is quite wet. We have non-drainable bases. You get these transverse cracks, and you get that deterioration, and you get those cupping of that transverse cracks. And I'll talk a little bit about that when we get to CASA 8. We've done stuff in concrete too. This is something that, we're quite proud. We've done a number of different things with diamond grinding efforts, related a number of different things with partial depth patches. We did lots of different partial depth patches on test sections in the last few years and have a pretty good report on 18 different manufacturers, different products that have been put out there. We've done stuff with double bar retrofits. So we're doing both asphalt and concrete at MnROAD. And that kind of brings me to the initiatives that we talked about, and the reason I'm here to talk to you is about the national research initiatives related to our partnership with NCAT. We're working right now on 2 different studies with NCAT, and one of them has to do with the National Pavement Preservation Study, but the other one's development of a national cracking test for HMA pavements. And again, this is under a pooled fund study that's NCAT. MnDOT is a subcontractor to NCAT in this phase of the research. We have a lot of partners. One thing that's been nice about this partnership is before we and NCAT both were kind of regional. We didn't go south, they didn't go north. But when we started looking at the research and the research we wanted to do, it was really advantageous to have this partnership so we could bring in partners from both areas and kind of have perspectives of the north and the south and the different climates that we have. The National Cracking Performance Test, 2 slides on this, but this is where we've done a lot of work in the last few years through 2 pooled fund studies looking at thermal cracking, how to predict thermal cracking from the asphalt mix before you place that mix. We feel very strongly about this. NCAT is looking at top-down cracking, whereas Minnesota is looking at thermal cracking. But the idea here is that we'll be having a number of mixes and looking at can we predict that cracking and see what the performance is. And so there shows a number of different tests that are being done throughout the United States, and we'll be doing tests on all those, quite a battery of tests. But the goals is to have that test to predict performance and make it practical that DOTs can run it and use it for their benefit. What we've just finished up with construction this summer on our test track. NCAT has had a couple of sections related to the top-down cracking and looking at that, but for our thermal cracking, we developed some different types of mixes, and I don't know if you can see them there, but we have mixes that the cracking potential is very high, meaning that if you put a lot of RAP and RAS and use a very -22 binder in Minnesota, that thing should crack pretty quick. So we're trying to see if the tests will actually predict if that cracking, whereas we have some test sections also that we think they should last for a real long time because we use less RAP, we're using the right asphalt, and you should have a low cracking potential. But again, we built these 8 test sections. We just finished up this summer. Again, we're trying to figure out through the testing, and NCAT's doing a lot of the testing. We're doing some of the testing, and a number of other universities are doing testing on these mixes to kind of look at that potential of cracking. And now we only have to wait for the inevitable, but a nice cold winter to see what happens. Related to the National Pavement Preservation Study with NCAT, again, the idea here is that we needed a long stretch of roadway. MnROAD itself doesn't really lend itself to that because we have 500-foot test sections. And those test sections, just like NCAT, there's not a lot of space or a lot of real estate to use. So that's why we brought it out to these different test sections that are nearby on US 169 and CASA 8, just like they did in Lee Road and US 280. The idea is to bring it out there so you have a consistent layers that you can build upon and then look at the performance of those layers. But again, we've really appreciated having the partners that NCAT was working with through this, FP Squared, along with National Center of Pavement Preservation here that's sponsoring this conference. Really appreciate their input, but that allows us to kind of have a climatic zones for both north and south And now with this partnership, it kind of forces NCAT and MnROAD to do things that we've always wanted to do also, is do data collection in similar ways, do different things, and kind of look at the life extending benefits of these treatments. Again, when you look at Minnesota, just north of Minneapolis-St. Paul is MnROAD, about 30 minutes out. If you go an hour north of there, you hit a town called Pease. And in Pease, that's where the different test sections are. We have 169, we have 4 miles that we can work with there. And then on County Road 8 or CSA 8, we have about 2.5 miles a section. And you can't see this, but it just kind of shows you that there's a heck of a lot of sections here. And I'm going to kind of jump through these and look at the different ones that we have and kind of go over them a little bit, but talk about those just test sections. And again, these things are just built this year, this summer. The pre-treatment condition on 169, this section is maybe a little farther gone than you would really want for pavement preservation, but the idea is the sponsors wanted this type of roadway. They wanted to test the different treatments and really to see how well they work. This road's probably about 10 years old. It has thermal cracks, has some fatigue cracking, and it is kind of a dry mix. When you look at CSA 8, the low volume road or county road, this has a classic thermal cracks. We have probably one every 40 feet. Those cracks are cupped, which really kind of hurts the ride. So we have those cupped cracks. We have some fatigue cracking in the wheel pass, and very little longitudinal cracking in the center line right now. So the things that we did with Buzz's help when he was up there, and I keep wondering when he's going to start talking Minnesotan, but he hasn't quite lost that accent to his, but bless his heart. But again, we did a really nice job of tracking what happened when we did this. When we had all these different companies coming up and helping us, we did a lot of different things with the setup to make sure that all the equipment was working before we went out on the test sections. We looked at calibration of these different pieces of equipment and checking the emulsion rates, aggregate rates, and mix designs, and then verification in the field. That's very important, so we have a lot of control on what's going on out there and understand each of these treatments for the future when we start looking at the analysis. Here, again, you can't read it, but the idea here is that of the test sections, and we did similar things on CSA 8 as we did on 169. So the low and high volume has the same treatments on them for the most part. But when you look at crack sealing and mastic, we had 3 test sections related to that with combinations of different types of materials related to that aspect. The details related that we did, hot poured, Craftco helped us out with that. We overbanded, we routed the transverse cracks and a few of the longitudinal cracks. And we did have that mastic that we also used for the cracking. And again, that was a mastic crack fill. And so we have these different sections that we built with crack sealing and mastics. When you look at chip sealing, again, it's hard to see here, but the idea here is in yellow, you can see the sections that deal with crack sealing. And that's with, or chip sealing, excuse me. And chip sealing, we did a single, a double, a triple, which our northern states said, why in the heck are we going to build a triple? But we did it anyways just to be consistent with what they did down at NCAT. So there's things that we did that we didn't necessarily think that was going to work, but we did them just in the sake of research to look at those. And when you looked at the chip seals, here's some of the details on that. And I guess I don't need to go over them too much, but you can see, again, the single, double, triple, and different combinations we did on top of other type of treatments. So we used typically an FA2 rock, FA 2.5, and a CA 70 when we got to the triple chip seals. Scrub seals, this is something that many of the northern states, at least in Minnesota, we have never used it. And it's something that NCAT's been talking about that's worked really well. We have 2 sections or 3 sections on our CSA 8 with scrub seals. And when you looked at that scrub seal, and again, you saw a lot of these things yesterday through the demos, which worked out really well. But again, it's that broom that with the distributor just kind of scrubbed the emulsion into the cracks. It seems like that's going to be working very well for us. But again, we've had scrub seals that we cover with microsurfacing, and we also had some thin lays that we used to cover up these scrub seals with scrub seals by themselves also. Microsurfacing, Minnesota has been doing microsurfacing a number of years. We've really liked the benefits of the microsurfacing, but we did a number of different microsurfacings and different combinations using microsurfacings. You know, we used type 2 on 169, we used type 3 on CASA 8, different types of area sizes. You can see the emulsion there. Again, this emulsion was 4 in Minnesota typically. It didn't quite pass the ISSA mix specifications, but it's very close. We did do a single double, and we did some micro over different types of treatments. We also did some of the micro that we did in Minnesota, typically in the passing lane, which is a little different than the national advice, but it's worked very well in Minnesota. One of the things that I just want to emphasize, again, Buzz talked about the QA/QC efforts, and you know, having something like this is helpful for states to make sure that we're getting the right things. And we wanted to emphasize this again, to have a simple test to verify that you have the right amount of water, you have the right amount of asphalt, your aggregate percentages are correct. These types of tests are needed if we're going to advance this type of technology and use it more frequently. Thin lays, again, we did a number of thin lays. Minnesota is just getting into this type of technology, but it's great to try the different combinations of thin lays and different types of treatments. Again, we did this on our high volume and low volume. This involved doing a mill and then a kind of a fill related to those. But you can see the different types that we did, from a virgin to an asphalt binder replacement. We used Delta S rejuvenator for one of the asphalt binder replacements. We did the HIMA, the ultra thin bonded wearing course, and you know, there are lots of different things that we typically don't use as a state, but it's going to be really great to watch and see how these perform, and that might, you know, influence us into the future in other states and other sponsors that we have. Again, we use some fog seals too. We use a conventional fog seal and a rejuvenating fog seal. So I guess what I'm kind of saying is we did a heck of a lot of things out here that you wouldn't typically do on a normal roadway, and it's going to be really helpful. Again, the 2 different fog seals and what we're doing with those fog seals. And we also did an ultra-thin bonding wearing course. So again, I'm just kind of running through these different sections. I don't have any performance to show on them yet. But again, I just wanted to kind of show that we're building stuff similar to what they did down south, and we're looking forward to the future related to that. Again, the details on the ultra-thin bonded wearing course. We used a bond breaker wearing course, gap-graded mix. Used a spray paver. It's something that we typically don't do because we only have one spray paver in our state. But it was great to have that up there at that facility for people to see that. And use a polymer modified quick break tack on that also, which is something new for us. And we have number control sections, like Buzz said. Again, we want to compare these. We're going to split them off into different subsections and look at the performance to kind of get that life extending benefit curves for each of these type of treatments and combinations. One thing that was kind of interesting related to the open graded friction course, Buzz tried his hardest to get us in Minnesota to build this on our 169. To get us to build this on our CASA 8, and it's something that Minnesota just doesn't do. We don't build these because we've had issues in the past. You know, we'll be having snow plows, which is going to be a little different than they have in Alabama unless they have a real tough winter. But this open grade friction course, and what's nice about MnROAD is we were able to take a spot at MnROAD, take a spot that had both concrete and asphalt, and to try this type of mix because we're worried about the environmental factors related to it. So our low volume road, we have our semi driver is the only one driving on it. It's a closed loop no one in the public is driving on it. So we felt this was a great place to kind of look at this and see how it performs, and maybe that will change our minds on how we do it. But again, we did stuff related with ultrafused tack along with a conventional tack. We did it on concrete and asphalt, and it's about a 200-foot stretch that we'll be able to monitor this winter and see how it performs. And I think that'll go away. If that performs well, then we can bring that out maybe to other roadways in the state. But again, the different sponsors, the northern sponsors, were very reluctant to do this. And again, the Lowvine Road should help us out. And I got to thank you. Thanks to all the sponsors, all the different people that helped us out here. And looking at, we wouldn't be able to do this without these different groups. Buzz was instrumental in bringing East Alabama Paving up, Vance Brothers. They did a great job coming up there and do that. But that's going to give us some consistency for the future to look at these test sections, not only in a southern environment, but also a northern environment. And I also wanted to state too that Buzz showed some of his graphs, and some of the graphs really show the life extending, the benefits of doing this over that. But again, this is going to take some time and commitment to do this. I don't think right now we're in 2018. Our pooled fund is over. Once that pooled fund is over, we're going to be talking about different ways to kind of long-term funding on these different test sections. And again, it's going to take a few more years to do that. I know the sponsors will be talking with the sponsors later on this month. But again, that'll be a reduced rate, I would imagine, because we have the test sections constructed. It'll just be a monitoring and analysis type of activities that will be going on for the future. But again, we want to take each of these treatments to the pre-existing condition and to look at those and really see what happens. So just like we've had different partnership meetings for the pavement preservation. I think this is the Midwest that was up a few years ago. Patty over there in the corner always likes this picture because she's standing there and I use it quite a bit. But again, thank you for your time. And, I'm sure you'll see some of us again up at the sponsor meeting in Minneapolis October 26th and 27th this month. So thank you very much.
Thank you.